There's a lot of electrolyte supplements out there, so I know you have options, but you don't need to be wasting your time and money on supplements that give delayed results. That's why Protekt Hydration is a superior electrolyte supplement. Since it's a liquid and not a powder, it's ready to work immediately. And since its electrolyte ratios match those lost in sweat, it's designed to do exactly what it's supposed to do. So stop wasting your time with powders and head over to protekt.com/truth and start supplementing like it matters. I'm a dietitian and work with some of the best athletes in the world. These people trust me with their health and performance, and it's up to me to make sure that they're taking advantage of everything they can to be at their best. And I feel the same way when it comes to the general population, because dads, moms, students, physical laborers, and busy professionals all need to do everything they can to perform at their best every single day. That's why I tell everyone I can that a great day starts with a good night's sleep. And when it comes to the best sleep, Tuft and Needle has your back, quite literally. Their state-of-the-art mattresses are designed with adaptive foam to give you the perfect balance of support and comfort, whether you're recovering from a tough workout or just need a restful night to tackle the day ahead. They're so confident you'll love their mattresses that they offer a 100-night sleep trial. So if you're ready to upgrade your sleep, visit tuftandneedle.com and finally wake up feeling energized and ready for the day ahead. Trevor Thompson, the best way I think I can describe you is you're just a lifelong adrenaline junkie. Navy SEAL, base jumper, wingsuiter, hunter, everything that anyone can imagine would scare them and require a shot of adrenaline, you do. But to start with, I do want to talk to you about the fact you are a Navy SEAL. What was the inspiration and the motivation for you as a young man to want to become a Navy SEAL and to get into that?
So my family has a long history of military service. We've been on the continent in North America since 1640 or so. Our first relative came over as a stowaway. And since then, we've served in, as far as we can tell, every conflict that has occurred with the colonies involved and then into the United States. So French and Indian War, Revolutionary War, both sides of the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam. And so for me, there was an interest from my dad in military culture, mostly World War II to Vietnam eras. So I'd read a bunch of books. His father was a Marine during World War II, did a bunch of combat landings, 7 of them, and I grew up with him alive. He was alive up until about a month ago. So he passed away when he was 102. So I had the opportunity to know this guy for a really long time. And because of that, when I was growing up, the opportunity of you can be in the military or that's a thing to do wasn't an odd thought. And I think for people that join a quote unquote peacetime military, maybe that would be something that only people that are in positions of desperately needing something to do or a very deep sense of quote patriotism or family history. Those are the only ones that are going to do that, you know? It's not the, I need to serve and do my part type of orientation. I was 14-ish when the towers came down on September 11th, right? So I was old enough to understand what's going on. Watched Baghdad get bombed on TV in high school. I still didn't quite have that urge because I was more a creative type. I ended up going to an art school. But I felt like I wasn't doing my service like my uncle, like my grandfather, both my grandfathers, like my great-grandfathers. Like we had a picture growing up, when I was growing up in my parents' house, it's still there, of whatever great-great-great-grandfather was a POW at Andersonville in the Civil War. It's like we have a picture of him and a letter he wrote from when he was interred in the South, which is wild. Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm going to do my thing. And I had never really done any research or heard of or known much about the SEAL teams at all. But I was like, look, I'm athletic. I'm not stupid. I'm in a position where I can pick the hardest thing to get me through and do the most interesting, hardest unit choice. And that's what I did. I literally I had the thought. I thought about it for a while. A couple months after being in school initially, in college in Chicago, I took the train and then walked down to a Navy recruiter and told him that, hey, I want to do this thing. Tell me about it. And that guy's eyes lit up like he had just seen a bar of gold walk through, because, man, you get a dude that says, I want to be a recon Marine, I want to be a Navy SEAL, I want to be a Ranger. That guy's joining. Like, you don't have to, there's no convincing. He's already done the hard part of the job for the recruiter. So my impetus really was, I wanted to serve because I had so much service in my background. That was 2006. So the war was 5 years old, 4-ish years old. Since there was really heavy ground conflict, and I wanted to do my part. I was old enough to do it. I was 18. So I'm like, cool, this is the time. I'm not 38. I can do it, And I didn't have another job. I'd only just started school. I felt like I wasn't doing anything.
So what was it? Because I think a lot of people would be surprised to think someone would have the mind to want to go to art school and then become part of one of the most elite fighting forces in the world. What was it about that? And is there something, did art school or that artistic mind in any way shape your mindset once you were in the teams?
I don't know if art school shaped my mindset. I think how I think and the art that I still do, or writing that I do, or my breadth of reading interests is partially from that kind of right-left brain crossover that you get with people that are going to programs like that. I'm very glad that I ended up meeting a lot of the people I met there that are possibly people that maybe you would think that guys from special operations would never interact with. The quote weird people, the ultra left, ultra socially liberal. It's an art school. Draw whatever image you want in your head. Those are the people that are there, and it's a well-known, really good school. I think that it made me a better team guy in that respect. Being able to understand that those are people out there that we're doing that job for too.
And I know you as a very centric, deep thinker who doesn't fall on any side. And I would imagine that had a lot to do with it, that you've been in circles and rooms that would be far on one side of the political spectrum. And then you've been in circles and groups that would be far on the other side of the political spectrum. But you being such a free thinker, an unbiased person, has allowed you to find some common ground in the middle there.
I think my biased thoughts and my hardline thoughts when I was 20 to 24, 25 were cut away like wheat in a field by my mixture of friends and by the hobbies that I had. I learned to ski when I was in the SEAL teams, so that wasn't part of my identity. I learned how to do a lot of the things that I do now while I was there. And a lot of those hobbies have very socially left or fiscally left, or a combination of both left-leaning or ultra-left personalities. Rock climbing, I've done that my whole life. That group of people they're very, you could call them hippie, free spirit, nomadic type of humans, and very communal, very left, very money is pretend. That's great. We need a mixture of thoughts. Otherwise we're going to be one way or the other, So I know that my free thinking wasn't that wasn't a new thought. I didn't come up with that way of like, oh man, I should really be like this. I was introduced to it by friends of mine, like Steph Davis is somebody I've known a long time. She's a rock climber that's very well known. She's a freaking vegan, but we're very good friends. You know, I've had Thanksgiving dinner with her for years. And I think that both of our ability to cross the gap has only enriched both of our lives. So I've been able to see that in people. And I'm like, man, if they can do it, I can do it for sure. You know, I can learn to be a better person by taking in some of those personalities and some of that like care. And in some situations, like if you're this like hard ass military, right wing, whatever you want to call it, you're not going to get accepted in those places, and you're never going to be able to do that activity, not to the best of your ability. You know, so do you want to do the thing, or do you want to be like this hard-headed asshole? Like, feel free to be that hard-headed asshole, but you may never be able to experience the depth and breadth of human experience.
And what would you say it takes to become a Navy SEAL? Because I know growing up, and it wasn't anything you ever really heard about. And I feel like a lot of the fame came after the killing of bin Laden. But since then, it's kind of become the lore. I mean, it's almost like comparable to professional athletes and action heroes. And there is a look when I see a Navy SEAL or a member of a special operations community, you expect them, even if they've been retired, to still look ready to go.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said about that. So I do think there's got to be some physical attributes or mental attributes that tend to lead people down that route. And what would you say those would be?
Yeah. So the physical attributes are, you can actually boil it down to some pretty simple stuff. Most guys that are in the SEAL teams are kind of between like 5'8" and just under 6 foot, somewhere in there. 165 to 185 pounds, somewhere in there. You know, you're talking like the generalist athlete, the dude who can move a pretty good amount of weight pretty quickly, pretty well. You know, you're not looking for a defensive, you know, like a D-line guy. You're not looking for a shooting guard. You're not looking for a track and field 100-meter runner. You're looking for like a decathlete, you know, or somebody that like plays special teams, you know, like, oh man, that guy can like move around pretty good, you know, like an outfielder, you know, like that stuff sort of makes sense, like sports wise. Now, granted, that's the body shape. The sports that were represented by guys that ended up making it through and doing really well were mostly wrestlers, water polo players, and a mixture of like middle distance cross country ish type runners that also did other sports on their own. Because, you know, the general cross country or middle distance guy, if you look at them, they're 5'10", 145 pounds. Yeah. You know, for a good reason. It's very efficient for that sport. But those are like the physical attributes that would ID somebody to end up in BUDS. Now, BUDS is not how to be a Navy SEAL. BUDS is BUDS. BUDS is a selection process. So they're looking for guys that are just hard as nails and willing to put up with a level of discomfort that is something I can't describe to people in a way that will appropriately prepare their brain for what could be there. Because no matter the picture I paint, it will either seem incredibly hyperbolic and untrue, or it won't be enough. It's one of those you just had to be there type of scenarios. And I've heard third, fourth hand kind of information that they've given guys psych tests and over the years, and they have not been able to identify what makes a Navy SEAL. You know, it's not like the super hard ass of this type, but man, they think like this. It's this shotgun smattering on the XY axis of like, what type of person is it? Physically, it's idiot proof. You look at the standards, and the staff will say they spend like 90% of their time on 80% of the students that are right in the middle. The bottom 10% physically, based on standard scores, and I mean like the PST, the push-up, pull-up, sit-up, run, swim. That bottom 10% will never fucking make it. They physically cannot perform. The middle 80, they spend the bulk of their time on because physically they could technically make it. And then the upper 10%, they spend almost no time on the guys that are scoring at the tops of most of the tests, because it's for those dudes, which are mostly the guys that make it, it's all between the ears. If you don't get hurt or sick, you're going to make it. So what makes a Navy SEAL head-wise, nobody fucking knows. And every time I get asked, what I tell guys is, you won't know till you're there. Just don't quit. If you want it, you're not going to quit. And they're like, that's what you got for me? I'm like, yeah. Like, tell me your PST scores. And I can tell you what your probability is. But I can't predict what's between your ears. There's no fucking way. You could tell me like, man, I'd never quit. I'm like, yeah, I heard that from a ton of dudes. Everybody who's standing in the, like on the grinder at Buds, when they class up, says, I'd never quit. Cool, 167 guys in my class. 19 dudes later. 19 dudes at the end of the whole process actually didn't quit.
Was there ever a moment, if you're comfortable saying it, during Buds that you had to have a meeting with yourself that you were about ready to?
No.
And you just had to talk yourself out of it?
Nope. And I think when guys say everybody's had that moment where they said they're going to quit is, I've never asked every team guy. I'm not saying that was an intelligent thought or lack of thought on my end. It could have been a gigantic piece of hubris and ego for me to be like, I'm not going to fucking quit. I failed a drown proofing evolution after Hell Week. And that forced me to go to what's called a DRB, which is a disciplinary review board, because Buds is treated as a course. So you have to stand in front of the staff and be like, why'd you fail? And because I failed, there were two options, which is they're going to roll me back or kick me out of the program. And I had told myself before, I'm like, I'm either getting hurt or they're going to kick me out. I'm not going to quit. Well, I was standing there in my fucking dress blues thinking, great. I made it through Hell Week. I did the hard part. Well, that's what I thought. I thought that was the hard part. And now I'm done. And it was showing on my face. I mean, it was 18, 19 years old. And obviously it was showing on my face because the staff, when I got called into the room, were like, look, man, you're the kind of student we want here. Don't make this mistake again. Get the fuck out of here. Like, that was how the conversation went, that I recall. And I remember some of the staff members in there. I mean, they're terrifying. You know, this was 2007, 8. And most of these guys had bronze stars, silver stars. One of the staff members was missing an eye. Another guy had been burned like up this whole side of his body. Like, they're to me, they are exactly what I thought a Navy SEAL should be. And they're sitting there in their uniform, in dress uniforms, because they're kicking guys out. And you're standing there on the side of a hallway, guys getting called in, guys getting called in, guys getting called in, and they're walking out like, man, I guess I'm done. And most of the dudes who get called into those DRBs for failing events get kicked out. But I had done very well up until then. And it was a circumstantial thing that I failed because of a mixture of, like, I was sick and it was post-Hell Week. And
was there ever a plan B for you in your head if the Navy SEAL didn't work out?
The plan B was don't fail. Yeah, that's total hubris and super dumb.
Or it could also be what makes someone not have it in them to quit.
That's a possibility. It's what made me probably not even consider it.
If you know anything about me, you know that I eat deer. And that's because venison is higher in protein and lower in calories than most other protein sources. And since deer aren't mass farmed, it's 100% organic and free from all the additives that you don't want. I think everyone should eat deer, but not everyone hunts and not everyone has access to this best protein option. So I've teamed up with my buddies at Maui Nui Venison to offer Truth Serum listeners a limited collection of my favorite venison cuts. Again, since deer aren't mass farmed, supply is naturally limited. So make sure you head over to mauinuivenison.com/truth. That's MAUINUIVenison.com/truth. NUIvenison.com/truth. Eat deer. Half-Face Blades makes 100% American-made knives for the world's best military operators, hunters, and chefs. People who need knives to make a living or stay alive. That's why I trust them with my own everyday carry knife. So if things like buying American and high performance matter to you, head over to halffaceblades.com and throw away your cheap gas station knives.
I do think I see that with athletes. I see it in my own fighting career and my nutrition business, and anything I've ever had some level of success at. I had no plan B. And in a lot of ways that could be bad. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people are more willing to quit with plan A because plan B is also kind of nice. And if they know that they failed plan A, plan B is still going to be a pretty cool, comfortable position. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. Way easier.
And one thing too that I always think is interesting, I've been to a lot of different military bases: Afghanistan, Djibouti, Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, Kuwait, these different places, and I've gotten to speak to soldiers on nutrition and fitness and exercise and talk to them about that. And one thing that might, seems a little bit surprising to a lot is a lot of guys I found aren't really putting as much effort into those things as you would think.
Yeah.
When you think about the fact that you're war fighters, if we compare that to an athlete, game day is a life and death thing. So you would think a lot want to be training and eating in a way to perform at their very best if that does come about. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, is there within units and teams, like special operations units, is there a little bit more pressure or culture around eating and training and making sure that you are always prepared than maybe say like the normal military?
Yeah, I'd say a short answer is yes. And then the surprising answer is most guys, because the average age is like between 21 and 27, are doing what you think a bunch of like relatively genetically gifted, very fit 21 to 27-year-old Navy SEALs are going to do, which is like, yeah, they eat pretty good, but they sure like to have some beers and drinks and eat pizza and burgers and like, fuck yeah, let's go to barbecue and like do this thing and watch the game. But granted, they are thinking about all this stuff because there's an internal unit to unit culture of competition. I mean, shit, like a buddy of mine and I were both selected to go to a school, JTAC. And our OIC was like, let's decide who gets to go like kind of an old way, like max pull-ups, go. So we did max pull-ups, came even. And he goes, you guys are about the same body weight, so body weight, dumbbell, bench press, max reps, and that's how we decided how to go. Because our qualifications are both of us together, like we both deserve to go. So he's like, I'm going to make you guys decide. See who's fitter. See who's stronger. And that kind of shit just shows up. Like we would have weird, like basically like feats of strength Friday type of shit. And like, everything's a competition. Like outside of butts, everything's a competition. Because you're earning, they say it. People say, you earn your trident every day. And that's one of the ways you're doing it. Like, how fit are you? Are you a tub of goo? Because if you're soft, people will look at you and they know you're soft. Nobody wants a fucking soft guy, like, to be on the team. Not like that. Not unless there's like, what are you missing, a leg? Yeah, but I mean, I know guys at top tier units that are missing legs. Yeah, surprise, surprise, everybody. Like, there's guys that have amputations that can still do the job. They're working that hard. So the culture's there. Is the education there? I got out almost 10 years ago. It was starting to get there. We did have guys at the team that I was assigned to initially that were master's level CrossFit competitors that had done world-class level ultra running events. A buddy of mine did the HYROX 100 while he was an active duty team guy.
Can you explain the HYROX 100?
Yeah, the HYROX 100 is a 100-mile race in Hawaii. I think it's 3 or 4 laps of like If it's 4, then it's 25-ish. If it's 3, then it's a 33-ish mile loop of the worst jungle single track trail you could imagine. Like ankle breaker, baseball bat size tree limbs every 15 feet that are sticking from 3 to 10 inches up off the ground. So it's a wild event and it's hard to qualify. And he did well. I think he took 3rd, 4th, something like that. And everybody's like, there's no way. Like this dude, there's no way. He hasn't trained. He's a nobody. He hammered it. But he was a fantastic athlete. But that's the kind of culture that's there. You know, like dudes, they do well. What's his name? I can't remember his first name, but Ige, the UFC. His dad's a team guy.
Dan.
Yeah, I knew Dan when he was a child, when he had broken arms, like from jumping off buildings.
Oh, cool.
Well, from homes, you know, jumping into the grass. Like I remember him running around at parties. You know, I know his dad.
That's awesome.
He was at the team I was at. You know, so that's the kind of culture we have.
That's cool. And anyone who knows Dan knows, and he talks some about his dad being a team guy, but Dan is known for being the guy who, he's done this, who shows up no matter what. If he's asked to fight, last minute, he'll take last minute fights.
Damn right.
His nickname is 50K because he's gotten a lot of bonuses because win or lose, it's exciting. He doesn't quit. Like they have to force him out.
Dad's a team guy, and he comes and he was surrounded by team guys his entire life. And I'm sure that really influenced his personality as a fighter. He's like, look, I was around war fighters my entire, like growing up. We had barbecues at their house. Like, of course he's going to act like he's going to be this kid that's like all of his dad's buddies, his work friends were like Navy SEALs. How else do you think that kid's going to grow up?
Yeah.
He's going to be super resentful or who he is.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I would have never thought about, I never thought we'd make that connection through there. Dan's a good buddy and someone I will definitely have on the podcast. And you'd mentioned the competitive nature that's always going on. And I know that you are a long time or old time CrossFitter. I say like you were doing CrossFit early, before it was cool and then before it became uncool.
I was doing CrossFit when there was still just that shitty HTML message board. Checking the workout of the day, the actual workout of the day.
With complete surprise, no one knew what.
Yeah, nobody knew what the hell. Like, oh, let's log on and see.
True,
that looks
unknown,
weird.
and unknowable.
Yep.
And do you think a lot of that, what you were doing with the SEALs, and again, like being, you mentioned that a lot of what makes someone a successful SEAL is being able to just kind of, it's the unknown and unknowable and just being the generalist.
Yeah.
Is that what attracted you to CrossFit and made you a good CrossFitter?
What attracted me to CrossFit initially was so the way that I approached joining was really trying to better the things that I was already not good at. So I was a good runner. I did multiple 1,500 meter competitions where I ran in the like high 440s, 430s, right? So no problem. And the mile in similar. So I knew that I could run. Cool, that's great. So what I started doing was I'm like, how's the best way to train? This is 2006. So like there weren't movies, books, YouTube videos. There weren't like schools. Like, man, there's a freaking like CrossFit special operations prep program now, which weirdly enough, I was part of the testing for that. That was just circumstantial. And so the only way to train was either who fucking knows or the way that a lot of guys had trained, which is following Stu Smith's books. So Stu Smith is a Naval Acad grad, and he was a team guy, and he's put out books on an old like VHS tapes. I think I had like some of the early DVDs too, of like, here's how to do the side stroke, and that's like side stroke in the pool. It's like, here's how to do the push-ups and the pull-ups. And like, I literally followed the calisthenic routine. And I'm like, man, there's got to be like other stuff out there to do. And I had seen some early videos of some of the very early CrossFit guys from Santa Cruz, right?
That would have been there with a lot
the very
of the
first
OGs.
one. Yeah. And I'd seen some like videos floating around the internet, earlier YouTube. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, wonder what that is. And started digging into it, and then realized like, oh, this shit could probably help me a lot. Asked the weightlifting coaches and the strength and conditioning coaches that had been at my high school, which one of them is relatively well known, Barry Ross, who he was the strength and conditioning coach for Allison Felix. And they all were like, yeah, they seem like they're doing a good job for the job you want to do. That might be a good thing to look into. So I started learning how to like do all the things. Basically like semi self-taught myself how to do like really crappy cleans and really, really, really shitty sort of snatches. But everything else I could sort of do. So I didn't really lean into the heavy Olympic lifting stuff, but I did everything else like relatively well. And that was how I approached the training. Like, I just want to like do as much general stuff that helps me grow in a way that I couldn't otherwise, because I was already good at running, but I had no damn clue how to do anything else. And that helped me do the other things. In retrospect, best thing I could have done. I would like, and the thing that I suggest to guys now, I'm helping to write a program right now for guys to get through selection type programs or selections. It's basically done. But otherwise, I've told guys like, just buy Stu's books. Stu has probably helped more dudes make it through buds than any human ever will, because it's simple. It's like, just do these things. Buds is a selection. It's not being a Navy SEAL. It's a totally different process.
And the evolution of CrossFit, because CrossFit now looks much different than CrossFit. And I believe I started my first CrossFit workouts around 2007, 2008 would have been the first time.
Bro, guys were like in 06, 07, dudes were still working out in freaking basketball shorts.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Oh,
like
yeah.
Some of it was like beltless. I mean, man, like Josh Everett.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah.
I mean, like there's like those were the dudes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's the way.
That was to me, that was, from a business standpoint, it wasn't the highlight of CrossFit by any means.
Hell no. But as an athlete.
But as a CrossFitter, that was the glory days. It really was, because you didn't have the CrossFit uniform.
No.
Like like someone walks into a gym, like, no, they're doing CrossFit.
Like you see like old videos of Everett, right? Like you see him in freaking like, like just above the knee basketball shorts, t-shirts, freaking like Asics shoes. Yeah. Like, what the shit? Like now you'd look back and be like, ha ha ha. Granted, that guy was an animal.
Yeah. Well,
like a total savage.
I remember Rob Orlando.
Yeah, Rob Orlando.
Rob Orlando. And
he looked like he then looked like the big Jack Gorilla.
Yes.
Right? You look at him now in comparison to name the dude that's over 5'10" in CrossFit, and he would look like a schlub.
Yes.
In comparison. No offense, Rob.
No, and I think it is.
Don't hurt me.
I think it's because with the evolution of CrossFit has become very similar. I compare it to the evolution of UFC.
Okay.
Honestly, in the early days.
Yeah, or jiu-jitsu.
It could, yes. And it's evolved to the point where mixed martial arts or CrossFit, the whole point was we're going to punish the specialist. If you're a 10 in anything, you're not going to do well because we need 5s and 6s.
Yeah.
Be okay at everything. And it kind of, in my opinion, and I'm curious of your opinion, it got to a point where CrossFit is a specialty of its own. And if you're not a CrossFit specialist, you will not even be competitive at a regional level.
I agree. And what's interesting to me is the more interesting athletes to me now, and the ones that I think are better athletes, not better CrossFitters, not better fitnessers, but better human athletes, are people that could show up to a regional event and perform 80% of the activities better than 99% of the participants, and 20% of the activities worse than 80% of the participants. For instance, if I went to a regional level event, right, I could do relatively well at some of the things, but I would be abysmal at stuff like the snatch, that are ultra skill and now have grown in a way that is like super heavy.
Yes.
But then there's other things that I would at a regional level, I could possibly wipe the table with some of the events, right? As a nobody. And I mean, I can throw numbers out there, you know, and they're understandable numbers. And people are like, no, that metric would make it. I mean, yesterday you watched me do on a plyo mat some vertical leaps that like would put me in a category of competitive nature.
I was shocked. Just to be honest, it was impressive.
Same with like max effort on a assault bike. Like I can do some max efforts on assault bikes that people are like, well, that's pretty competitive numbers. Like at 165 pounds, you know, a 1 minute effort of 57, 58 calories is a lot. But then you do other stuff and I'm getting hammered because I'm more like an older school CrossFitter where like I'm a kind of a generalist and I like being a generalist, but they've picked their things in a way that, man, is it fucking impressive to watch guys at the games or men and women to watch somebody clean over 400 and they can still run a mile in 5:30 and they can do 40 toes to bars in a row, ropeless leg climbs, row a marathon. Like that's cool shit. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff that they're god awful at, you know, make them throw a baseball. Yeah. Unless they grew up throwing a baseball, they're probably really shitty, you know, or there's all like name the other event. A few years ago, they did jump rope, right? That knocked out Tia. She's the best CrossFitter at the time, period. Like that is an objective truth. And because she couldn't do the skill, like now that's manufactured for the fun of the event. Cool, whatever. But yeah, similar to watching the UFC, like it's become its own specialty. Like, oh, well, you need to be a 7 out of 10 out of all these things. But man, I bet if somebody, you know, from and it does happen in the UFC, that's actually a good example. Like right now, on occasion, somebody shows up from another sport that is a multi-world champion in something, right? Valentina, like she came from kickboxing, right?
Yep.
She's terrifying.
Yes.
But there are people that come from other outside areas that are so specialized and so good at that thing that they show up and you're just like, oh, okay, well, yeah, everybody else really is a generalist. Yeah. They're just a good generalist at this specific thing now.
Yeah, and what is it? It's been so long since I was really in the CrossFit world. It's constantly varied functional movements performed.
Yeah, constantly.
Is it what it performed at a high intensity?
Yeah, something like that.
I believe it's at. And I feel
and
like
they've added like the ability to have endurance or whatever. Like Adrian Bosman was talking about that with one of the recent like CrossFit documentaries. He's like, oh, you have to have endurance and this and this. I'm like, okay, well, that's a cool addition.
Yeah, and I feel like an unsaid addition, and in my own personal opinion, you know, some people may get real tested about this. I mean, I don't look like a CrossFitter, and I'm not. You know, but I feel like where CrossFit has done wrong by fitness is the unknown addition to that has been novelty.
Yes.
And they've looked at ways that they can add novelty and shock factor. And in my opinion, that doesn't,
circus.
Yes. And that doesn't test fitness.
No.
And that's really if we're really trying to test the fittest on earth, for instance, we're talking about crossover jump rope, correct? How does that test fittest on earth? That tests the one who could just maybe, I guess that, I don't even know what you would say that would test. That would someone who can just happen to put a skill together.
See, I like those kinds of things coming up at the gym that I work out at as cash out bonuses or cash in bonuses. Oh, okay. You're able to do this thing. That's not the meat of the workout or the meat of the event or the meat of the test. And it allows the judging people or the competition as a whole to give them a bonus. Oh, you can learn a skill really fast. Or, oh, you can perform this weird thing really fast. Years ago, they did like a few years ago, they did this like handstand walk over parallettes and you had to do like spins and turns. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Is this tryouts for Cirque du Soleil? Like handstands are a great test of some things. Well, handstand walks and doing flippy doos and like walking across parallettes is ridiculous. Do something else. We're testing fitness, not skillness, right? And that's a skill because we've watched 12-year-olds do that really well. Well, 12-year-old can't clean and jerk 375, right?
Yeah.
Fitness is fitness. And I think that they've bridged the gap into Showtime, which maybe they have to as a business. And granted, I mean, CrossFit is a marketing agency. It's a marketing business. That's how they're like incorporated. It's not a fitness thing, regardless of how you think about it, people. So bummer. Oh well, is what it is. As opposed to say like the UFC or World Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, like those are what they're for. Like the UFC is to find fighters. Period. They fight. Yeah. They fight in a specific way amongst some rules, but they fight.
Yeah. Jiu-Jitsu,
they do jiu-jitsu, like gi or no gi, the end. That's just how they do it, right? CrossFit is like, we're trying to find they've whatever, trademarked it, the fittest on earth, right? Big quotes, big, huge quotes. Because like, man, there's some like Olympic level decathletes that, oh, good God.
Oh, yeah.
Like I would not want to watch them wipe the floor with some people because they would.
Yeah. And I think a disservice that does sometimes at the local level with local CrossFit gyms is you see a lot of local CrossFit gyms try to mimic the gameness of CrossFit rather than really adopt and accept what made CrossFit in the original days. And I owned a gym for about 10 years and I always say we were CrossFit by name only.
Yeah.
We used the name and we did what we call functional movements but we were strict pull-ups, strict chin-ups, bench press, squat, deadlift, change of direction drills, a very, what was known as CrossFit football style. And there would be times we would do things that I thought was important. You might show up one day and I don't turn the music on and I'm not going to turn the music on. And you would just see people get so shook by the fact that for the next 30, 45 minutes, they have to work out with only the sound of their breath. And to me, that was important. Like those are things we have to do because like, hey, the lesson I'm trying to teach you is like, if you don't have the distraction, can you keep going?
Yeah.
We would throw in a lot of things like that. We would throw in the shared suffering, mutual suffering, put everybody in a dead bug during the warm up. And every time you drop, we start over. We would do things. We end the workout with grab a heavy kettlebell and hold it out in front of you. And the last man standing wins, or the last woman standing wins.
Oh, yeah.
And little things like that. And to me, that kind of thing was really the beauty of CrossFit in the early days and how we can have that competition and challenge people without having to add in so much novelty and gameness that some people just can't even begin to play the game.
They don't need to. 99% of people that are participating in fitness need 3 things forever: good sleep, a decent dietary choice, like an 80-20 type of diet life, food life, and consistency. That's it. That's all that's all they need, because guess what? They're just trying to like not fall apart. They just want to have a better quality of life for the rest of their life. They may or may not do a competition of some sort at just their gym or regionals. Who knows? But probably not.
I know you've recently moved to HYROX.
I've done some.
What made you want to switch gears towards that? And what do you see that HYROX is doing that maybe CrossFit isn't? Because I know you have said that you do think HYROX is like the next evolution. More people are going to be doing HYROX. I know you're a big fan of it. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. So it's before doing it, the reason initially I thought it was just like, oh, cool, another fad, whatever, and then avoided any even research, which is a bummer because I could have been involved looking at it or doing competitions a year and a half ago. Saying that, now I've done one in January, a team one with one of the guys who owns the gym that I'm at, Michael Blevins. We did relatively well. We essentially came off the couch, right? We just took our training that we were already doing all the time and applied it. Did pretty well. like top 10-ish in the teams in our age bracket. And so, or not in our age bracket, in our team bracket, like men, whatever that was, men pairs, not pro, not elite. So I looked at it. I'm like, man, this actually looks kind of cool and interesting. And he said the same thing. We're like, let's just do one. And the reason we thought it looked cool and interesting is everything is already set. The weights are set. The distances are set. Everything it's a known variable, all of it. So it's trainable, right? It's just like a track and field event. Oh, I know exactly how long a long jump run up is. I know exactly how long the 110 hurdles are. I can train for that. That's a metric I can apply to my training and then try and manipulate what I'm doing in order to better myself and apply it to the event. Now, for me personally, what I think is very cool about this event is it's between 50 minutes and 2 hours-ish, depending on your fitness level, coming into it. You run 8 kilometers and change, depending on how you kind of move around the inside of this place. The heaviest weights you're going to move are very manageable, even at the elite level. You're just going to move them faster. I think it's a very human, applicable event. We are made to run. We're bipedal. Right? We're made to move at a medium to fast pace. And by fast, I mean for us, not fast animalistically. We're made to run at this like medium-ish pace, which is kind of what you have to do there. It's an hour plus of running around. You're doing skier, running, rowing. You're pushing stuff, pulling stuff, using your hands. We're the only animal that picks up and carries things in that fashion with opposable thumbs in that manner, and you have to do it there. And I like seeing the fitness that is shown and put on display and how you train for it and how you test it. After saying that, being at a competition, very, very cool. Unlike CrossFit competitions where they do bracketized stuff based on the wow factor, which is because of the fitness level. So they do elites and pros and whatever. Everybody competes all at the same time, essentially. It's just in waves. So you could be on the floor with a pro. You could be on the floor with an elite level competitor. You could be on the floor with Kathy, who works at the freaking Starbucks down the street. And this is the first thing she's ever done. She's never even done like a turkey trot type of 5K, like she's like, I just want to be here. Good job, Kathy. And you're like running circles like whoopee. Yeah. But that's really cool for them to see somebody slightly fitter than them. And that's cool to be there with another person that isn't as fit as you, but maybe they came because you came and you all get to be there together. It's much more of the older, what feels like it was 15, 20 years ago, community CrossFit as a huge event. I mean, they'll run 10,000 people through these events. You don't have to go anywhere. There's no extra. You can do it all indoors. It's very cool in those respects as a participant, especially somebody that's been involved and seen a lot of these for, I remember the very first CrossFit games with watching 20 people compete at the ranch, right? That's really cool. I wasn't there. I mean, I remember seeing the videos of it. And you're like, that's rad. That's community. They're all cheering each other on and shit. And now it's a spectacle. Cool. That's a different event now. Well, HYROX feels more like that community, even with thousands of people running at the same time. And the fitness that you have to produce for yourself is manageable. You can do it. Almost anybody can end up running 8K in 1K spurts and doing all of these ski erg and rowing. They are the simplest motions. There's no clean and jerk. There's no snatch. There's no, even kettlebell swings. There's no kettlebell swings. It's just carries. It's very simple things that I can teach anybody. I can teach a 10-year-old. I can teach an 85-year-old how to do any of these things and have them perform at their best in a manner that they're happy with.
Yeah. Yeah. What I like about it, just from looking in from a fitness intellectual mind, it's a test of your ability to do the primal movement patterns that have allowed us to become
Yeah.
who we are. And it's bipedal, it's pick up, move, and carry. And I remind people a lot, I think things like 5Ks and half marathons and such, they're great goals, especially if you've never done it. It's a good goal to have, but it was never something that was supposed to bury us.
Yeah.
Like it was supposed to be our abilities to do those things are innate and inherent. It's supposed to be that way. And that's what's allowed us to become, what we are. That's what would have allowed us to outrun the predators that had built-in weapons with teeth and sharp claws, and was our ability to cover distances and move distances carrying heavy loads. And these are the things that were just supposed to be natural. And because we're also intelligent creatures that have created technology, and in every way we've found ways to make life easier for us. And as we've done that, we have de-evolved physically. So now the things that were just normal that everyone could do, or you die on the trail because you can't do it, those are now competition.
Yeah.
And the beauty of what I see HYROX is doing is it is taking those things, because it's all trainable. It's all things that we're inherently built to do. We're built to carry, again, the opposable thumb. We're built to do these things, but now we can just practice it and train it to where we can go do it at a competitive level, or at least just a level to prove to us that we can. And with that, the fact that it is, unlike CrossFit, it's not the unknown and unknowable, it's the known, knowable, and trainable.
Yep.
So you didn't like your score last time, you know how to get better, go train it and get better. And to me, that's true fitness testing.
And the only thing they don't really do is like lateral and sprint speed. Now with pushing the sled, you are doing semi-peak power production. So there's some argument for that there, as well as the ski erg and the rower, because the intervals that you're doing them at, unless you're a solo individual competitor, you can do some peak power production. So like Michael and I have done 2-man teams for years together at the gym that we're at. So we were sitting there like, all right, well, let's just do this like we do it at home. Like, let's just hammer down. Like, that's how we do it. And so we were doing peak power production on the ski erg and the rower, 20-second intervals on the skier. We got to the rowing machine and he's like, hey, if you feel comfortable, just row like a 135, 140. And that's what I did. Like I got down and that's what I rode. He rode the same and we got off and took off. But otherwise you're doing like mid-level effort, which is great. And there is some peak power, but to perform a little better, you might do some deadlifts. You might do some RDLs. That's about all you need. As a human, that's about all you need. And then the other thing they don't really test is pull power and hang. But you're going to do that. Okay, if you need to be pulling a sled or pulling the ski erg, those are motions that will have supplementary work that's kind of necessary to do better at them, like pull-ups, like kipping pull-ups, like ring pull-ups, like hangs. So you should be participating in some of the stuff that's missing in order to get better at it. But if somebody was told, just do the events to get better at the events, they'd get better at the events to a level that's probably about as good as they're ever going to get, unless they are genetically predisposed to be a great athlete, or they want to get much, much better and be competitive, which everybody deserves the opportunity to do that. So you can do it.
And a quote that I hear a lot in the fitness world, especially in the nutrition world, or that I call home, is you can't out-train a bad diet. And I dislike that because it's simply not true.
Yeah.
You can't out-train a bad diet for your entire life.
Yeah.
And you even touched on it with some of the SILs. These guys are athletes and they're working hard. And anyone who doesn't understand that has never seen that teenager who eats whatever they want and just look amazing and perform at a high level. But that's not sustainable long term. The body does start to break down and it does start to punish you. And you're how old now?
37.
37. Has your own nutrition and programming and attention to recovery changed over the years with age and wisdom? And if so, how have those changed?
Yeah. I think my diet has simplified and cleaned up. I still kind of do 80-20-ish. I'll eat tacos and pizza every once in a while, but man, I tend to make the pizza.
Yeah.
Tend to make the tacos. That's kind of how it's changed. I've been presented with a lot of opportunities to hunt, so now I have a lot of game meat. I like the game meat. Is it nutritionally that much better than beef that you buy at the store? The arguments are so thin that I can't support them. Is the bioavailability a little bit better? A little bit. Is the mineral content and vitamin content a little better? A little bit. Enough to make the expenditure cost-wise for somebody for me to argue it? No. Don't put yourself in a hole and just go buy venison. It's ridiculous. But you should clean up your food. Have a little bit less processed stuff. A little bit more, I don't know how to call it. You could call it the paleo diet, but maybe call it like the 6,000 years ago diet.
Yeah.
Okay. If somebody was able to have a farm and like get it to themselves through like very, very short-term trade, like maybe the next town over 6,000-ish years ago, you could probably eat it. Try and eat seasonally if you can. Otherwise, just like the best rule ever at grocery stores is eat around the edge, right? Like most of the produce and most of the fresh meat, most of the fresh fish, or even frozen fish, frozen meat is on the edge of the store. If it's on the inside of the store, maybe think about what it is and why you're going in there. So yeah, I think my dietary choices have changed a little bit. And then workout wise, like I don't really lift super heavy a lot. And by super heavy, I mean like I'm not out there trying to pull 500 plus in the deadlift anymore or squat more than 450. Like I'm not doing that, but I'm not that far off. Like I pulled 440 last year. Like I'm not that far away, but like there is a difference, between training for those things and training for more generalized health, fitness, welfare for myself. And I do, if anybody follows like the workouts I put out, I do 5 to 15 hours of zone 2 work, depending on the season, every week, all year. And that's mostly for the sake that I like it. I like being consistent. I like having that routine. And I know it's really good for health. It's kind of this like dual purpose for me.
Yeah, you mentioned when you want something like pizza, you just make it yourself.
Yeah.
And with a lot of my clients, one of the biggest changes we make is that, like, if there's something you want for a while here, I'm going to challenge you not to say no to it necessarily, but I'm going to challenge you to make it yourself. Not only does that inherently clean it up. I mean, I post a lot of what I eat, and people are surprised by how often I eat cheeseburgers. I love cheeseburgers. But when I make one at home with a good quality bread, I'm using, I prefer venison. So I often, and I have tons of venison. So it's often made with venison. And if not, it's just a lean hamburger, good quality cheese. I grill it. Like when it's all said and done, that burger is significantly less calories than a much more simple, smaller one made at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And then you have the buy-in of the effort you put into it. You think about it. And I just think that a lot of people would make drastic nutrition changes if they put themselves to that test. If there's something I want, I have to make it.
And I've heard, I can't remember the new, like, I'm sorry if you're listening to this or ever hear it, but whatever nutrition person, fitnessy person said this, I loved it within the last year and a half that I heard them say. They're like, yeah, any of my clients, I'm paraphrasing, if they want to have a snack of some sort, something like grilled cheese or a quesadilla or, snacky food, I tell them, yeah, feel free to have it. If you have to make all the parts, if you had to go get all the cheese, retrieve it all, make the quesadilla, grill it, like if you don't have to just like take it out of a package and put it in your microwave, that's the like, how hungry are you? Are you just going for satiation? or are you actually need some food?
Yeah.
You know, and that was kind of a start to delineating, am I just like snack hungry or am I hunger hungry?
Yeah.
You know, they're different. And I've had people tell me like, well, that's kind of hard. I'm like, that's fine. It's not supposed to be easy, but you start doing that. You do that for a month, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, or in my case, like almost 20 years of doing that. I know when I want a snack. And sometimes I just have a snack because like I want to have a fucking snack. But usually I'm like, I'm probably good.
Yeah. And one thing too, it reveals a lot about food choices and habits, because when I do put people to that test, you'll hear often, it's like, well, I don't have time to cook. Like, are there things you're choosing instead? And can we eliminate those? And if not, is a lot of your issue purely the fact that food is chosen always based off convenience? And if so, then we got to work around that and find ways to help you with that. But you can learn a lot about someone's habits and nutrition, the nutrition resistance, when you put them to that test of, I want you to make everything or prepare everything ahead of time. And then you're going to find what the biggest resistance points are. Is it laziness, or is it they really are just that busy? And if so, then we have to find ways to help them with the convenience foods more. And, and I'm not an anti-convenience food person. I do think we should eat whole foods as often as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll agree with this. But that's just not a reality for everyone.
No.
A lot of people don't have the empathy to understand that. And I've had that conversation, not to make this a political commentary, but I know you and I have talked about things like this, is not everyone has access to high quality meat. Not everyone has access to these things. And I get real passionate about when we try to make nutrition change at a diplomatic level that's going to influence everyone, when not everyone even has those options to begin with. Some people, the only place they can get for food is a Dollar General.
Yeah.
And then when I explain that to people, they're like, well, they can't just drive to a grocery store. Not everyone has a car.
They don't have a fucking car.
Well, can they walk?
They're
Like,
taking
not everyone
public
has
transport.
Not everyone lives in a neighborhood safe enough to walk. I mean, when you really start to look at that, you start to see that, you know, there's a lot of nutrition resistance out there. So I'm real big on, we need to take personal accountability for our nutrition.
Yeah.
If you want fluoride-free water, you can buy it, and you might have to pay more, but it's out there. Like, if you want food dye-free food, you can buy that. Like, these things they're not there. They're there. They're already there. And a lot of us just don't buy it. And a lot of people just don't get these things because they're more expensive.
And most of the people that are like proselytizing for this kind of thing are very financially well off. And I don't mean like middle-ish class. I mean like they want for nothing, have 3 vehicles, likely, vacation every single year 2 times, and can pay for a lot of discretionary crap. Like, feel how you want about that. Tell me that I'm wrong. That's fine. Don't care. Because there's a ton of people that are living paycheck to paycheck, or have multiple kids and are in situations where they grew up in places that are very, very financially burdened with the weight of decades or centuries of poverty. And they don't know they've never given the opportunity to pull away from that. And that's legitimately not anything they planned for or want. Yeah. And guess what? With the proliferation of digital information, not only do they not want it, they can see the brighter side of the tunnel and can't even get there. And that is unfortunate. So to like put this on them, like you should be doing this, is not only wrong, it's awful. And you have no compassion. Even if you can never sympathize with those people, with a person in that situation, you should have compassion for them as a human being. So understand that they might be on food stamps, or they might be on the SNAP program, or they might not be there, and they're struggling to 2 days a week cook food at home because their freaking electric grill that is in their their hot plate inside of their house is the only thing they have to utilize. Yeah. Like, that's just reality. And so if you tell somebody like, hey, just try and start making some slightly healthier choices, that could be the difference between, like, call it a quarter pounder at McDonald's, or they go to Dollar or Savor, like some other really affordable food place, and they're like, well, I'll try and find some like frozen hamburger patties. Yeah. Okay, dude, that's a start.
Yes.
Like, you have found a way to change the way you think about food. That's all I'm asking. Because like that will empower you to make other choices and find other places to like educate yourself and become better at making the choices on a regular basis. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. It's like, that's what I want everybody to do within their own personal life and financial means. Like, I've found a way to do that for myself. It's helped better me. And I think everybody can do it to whatever degree they're able to do it. From the person that is trying to work 3 jobs and support the opportunities of their children and is very far on the bottom end of I'm really poor, to somebody that is worth $1 billion. Yeah. And they can all have compassion for each other, and they can all have better food choices no matter what their starting point is.
Yeah, I think we all have room to improve, but where we're starting out and what that improvement looks like is vastly different.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's a totally different conversation for a totally different set of reasons.
Yeah.
But you, the listener, can make a better food choice. Period.
And I wanted to touch a little bit on, as we talked about the adrenaline junky things you do, you also do base jumping, and is it called wingsuiting?
Yeah.
How would you say that?
Wingsuit flying. Yeah.
What got you into that?
I learned how to skydive early in the SEAL teams. It's part of the program, and I enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the activity. And then I saw videos of guys jumping off buildings in Los Angeles in the 80s. One of which was Todd Schubothen. And Todd ended up becoming a friend of mine. Years later, I told him, like, oh yeah, I got into base jumping because I saw you jumping off buildings in LA in that video, Stealing Gravity. Or yes, I think it's Stealing Gravity. Which is like a student film from USC. And he's like, you saw that film? Where the hell did you see that? I'm like, oh, I saw it like in the depths of YouTube. He's like, Jesus Christ. Like, man, really? And I saw people jumping off buildings in this video, and I'm like, I want to do that. And was given a couple opportunities to go do a couple of base jumps. This is like 17 years ago. And I just kept doing it 16 years ago. And I just never stopped. And as I started skydiving more, this was 2009, 10, that was earlier in wingsuiting. Wingsuits had already been around for about 12 or so years, 15 years, on a large-ish scale. And by that, I mean, like, it's more than one freaking lunatic that's like dressing up in nylon and jumping out of an airplane. It's kind of got a form and structure to it. But I learned in what now is considered relatively early in higher performance wingsuiting existing at all. There was very few choices, very few people that did it. I happened to be at a drop zone. I happened to live near a drop zone in Hawaii that had a bunch of very competent, and now looking back at it, like, I was around world-class level people, which was just a freak occurrence. Learned how to do that. Thought it was really cool. Never had any specific interest in wingsuit base jumping, and Years later, met more guys involved in it, became very friendly with all of them, wanted other ways to base jump, wanted to jump in some of these huge, gorgeous areas in Italy, Slovenia, France, Norway. And I'm like, I want to do that too. And had already done many thousands of skydives. Instead of having to ask what the process was, I already knew what the process was and had already kind of completed all the requisites. Like, I'm not going to just jump off this thing and kill myself. Like, I'm going to understand what's going on, and have grown to really love the activity. I don't call it a sport. Like, there's no like testable, quantifiable thing. There's no end state. It's a cool activity. I'm not, flying through gates or doing anything like that. There are sports of wingsuiting. I don't do any of them, but I've done it for a very long time. And it's just it's an interesting activity. It's about the closest you can ever get to flying as a human being. You're like face first down a mountain, essentially, or down a steep part of a mountain or next to a cliff, going 100 to 120 miles an hour, dressed up in a nylon
flying squirrels.
Yeah.
I think back to my fights and I tell people I wish everyone could experience it. The feeling and the thoughts that run through your head in the final seconds before it happens, when the ref points and says, "Are you ready?" And he points like, "Are you ready? Let's go." And that conversation you have with yourself in those final seconds. And sometimes that is, like, "Am I ready?" Or
yeah.
"I guess I'm ready." Or it's powerful, and it's a very interesting thing that if you've not done it, you just can't understand it. And I'm curious, before a jump like that, if it goes wrong, if something goes wrong in a fight, I lose.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong on a wingsuit jump, you die.
Possibly.
Most likely, I would imagine. Just knowing what I know about gravity. What's going through your mind in the final seconds before you jump?
None of that at all. And if that's going through your head, like, if you're not afraid, you shouldn't be jumping. If you're anxious, you probably shouldn't be jumping. I personally am sitting there thinking about where I'm going to fly, what I'm going to do. And then in the seconds prior to exiting a cliff, I'm only thinking about the mechanics of how to do it. That's it. And when it comes to like wingsuit base jumping, I try and do the exact same thing every single time, essentially. Like, cool, I'm going to like slowly crouch down, lean over, let gravity take control. The second gravity starts to take control of my body and I'm out over the cliff in a place that I can't return from, I push very, very hard, aim at what I would consider like a hula hoop, a meter or 2 meters about in front of me, slightly down below the edge of the cliff, maybe about 40 degrees down, and try and like hammer myself that direction to gain some airspeed and let the wingsuit do the flying. And I have almost 1,000 base jumps. I have about 7,000 skydives. I've been saying those numbers for like about 2 years because I really haven't done a shit ton of of base jumping or skydiving in the last couple of years. And it like many dozens a year, but not enough to make a manageable change on those numbers. But those are the only thoughts going through my head.
I would imagine a lot of that comes too from the background as a SEAL. You've put in the work and the preparation's there.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're just going through the checklist of what you need to do to perform this task. And if you've done everything you need to do,
possibly, that possibly could be where that's coming from, as well as it just works for me. And I'm a very much like, I don't know, blackout and do the action type of person. Like if you watched me do those vertical leaps yesterday, I don't know if you like caught any of them that I'm doing. Like I kind of was doing the same thing probably every time. Like I don't know, people are like, man, I get stage fright or I don't want to be in front of a bunch of people. Like there's probably 20 people watching us do that. I don't remember, like I remember that after the fact. But I was like, okay, cool. How do I do a vertical leap like as absolutely hard as possible? Like how do I do this? Okay, arms up, I'm gonna come down, I'm gonna lean down, I'm gonna like fire up, then I'm gonna straighten my legs and pull my fucking toes up and try and like imagine that I'm going as high as possible. Like, but that's all I was doing. I was mechanically going through the action in my head and just everything else was blacked out. I wasn't thinking about anything, nothing. Which is like, I don't know if that's a skill you can teach. Some people can just freaking black out put blinders on and black out the rest of the universe. I can do that during competitions. I can do that doing stuff like that. I can do that base jumping. I can do that hunting. I can do that like on all these different like activity. Like I don't know. It's weird. I feel like it's not ultra common. It's probably been to my detriment a few times.
Out of all the adrenaline-filled things that you do and you've done, what would you say is the most? What is the one thing that lights you up the most and hits those receptors and you feel alive after you do it?
Oh, I don't know. Wingsuit base jumping is pretty wild. Because like you said earlier, like the consequences could be fatal almost every time. Even skiing in some of the places I ski, like I ski at a good level. Even then, even skiers don't deal with the amount of death and destruction and total chaos of personal lives that base jumpers do or did many years ago. I've known almost 36 people that have died base jumping. It's not a big sport. Say most extreme skiers, like people that are in Red Bull videos and stuff, like they might end up knowing 10 or 12 their whole life that die in avalanches or falls. Base jumping's very, very, very dangerous, consequential. That's why I call it an activity, not a sport. I don't want people getting into it thinking it's a sport. It's a personal choice and it's incredibly selfish. But it's really, 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 really cool. It is so interesting and neat and different.
And I want to talk about your Rolex. I know that's a very weird segue here, but I read an article you wrote for Coffee or Die magazine about your Rolex, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a Submariner, and you bought it right after the SEALs, like right after you finished Buds?
Right, about right after right when I got stationed at my first SEAL team.
Okay. And what I really liked about this article, you talked about the dings and scratches that you've got on this watch now. And a lot of people would lose their mind if that happened to their $10,000 watch. And I have a Rolex that was gifted to me, and I too would lose my mind. It would terrify me. Like that thought process of, wow, this piece of jewelry got damaged. But instead you see it almost like a journal entry of an experience.
Oh yeah.
And you can look back at these scratches and these dings, and you see like they're memories of things that have happened and where that watch has been. And I think about that a lot, even in my own thing, like with scars. I have various scars. Every time I look in the mirror, there's been times there was some self-conscious there. Like as I get older, I know that's going to be loose skin and all this.
Yeah.
But I remember that knee. I remember winning that fight despite that injury. And I just thought it was so cool because you took something that other people would consider damaged. And again, for you, that has just been a catalog of experiences and where that thing's been, and just kind of talk about that. And I'm curious if there's anything you can share, any of those things you can share that when I see this, I remember this. And I know that there's going to be things that when you look at that watch, you can't tell people what caused that or what happened.
Like I have it on and I've been wearing it for 16 years or so, like 90% of the time. And like, this watch was produced in 2001, which is the last year that they made this case size and model. I went down to a used, reputable Rolex dealer, and I told him, hey, I want a vintage Rolex, and I'm going to wear it all the time. So he gave me two options, one of which was the older case model than this, which was produced in the 80s, and it had a acrylic front, acrylic face. And he's like, look, man, if you're going to wear it all the time, these cost about the same for you. And this one, the one that I have in my hand, like mechanically, they made some changes to this model that it's just better, but it's almost exactly the same size, look, shape as watches that had been worn and produced since the 70s. I'm like, okay, deal. So I got this watch here. And like looking at this thing, like it's been on bear hunts, mountain goat hunts, a ton of base jumps, skydives. I've jumped into Major League Baseball games, F1 events. It's been in combat. It's been underwater and like stuff like, I mean, like I can see some deep scratches, like stuff that catches your thumbnail. There's like a bang on the side of the case here that I know came from slamming it into the side of a mini submarine. I have the edge of the sapphire crystal is actually rough at about the 4 and 5 o'clock position, like really rough. It's because it got drug across the sub, like a large, huge submarine. There's scratches across like the lug areas from doing skydives and it getting slammed onto pieces of hardware. Which if you don't know, these cases are hard as shit. And so like doing that is rather wild to have happen. But the whole thing is like tore up, right? But I like that it's tore up. And then like every time I get it serviced, they're like, do you need this thing like cleaned up? They look at it. And then I tell them why. And they're like, oh, never mind. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like I can't clean that thing up. Like there's no way. And it has all the value and no value to me. I would never get rid of this. It has no dollar amount associated with it to me because it's 16 years of memories that are wound up in a 40 mil case. You know, it's a cool thing. And I got it because I wanted to touch some of the heritage of special operations, specifically SEALs and Green Berets during Vietnam. And a lot of those guys would go to the PX and buy Rolex Explorers or Submariners or get issued the Tudor Snowflake subs. And I wanted part of that. And it's interesting that there's actually a group of guys amongst the special operations community, from Delta Force to SEAL Team 6 to Force Recon to whatever, that have a mixture of Rolexes and Breitlings and like Seiko Turtles, because they all pay homage to this history of, man, a lot of these like operators and or special operations type guy, unconventional warfare fighters, have had these specific mechanical tool watches. It has nothing to do with dollar amount associated. It has everything to do with history. And I wanted to be part of it, and I'm glad I did. And it's part of why like I've never bought a watch from Jake at Sangan. And he knows it. I'm like, sorry, bud.
They and Sangan does make good watches. I have one.
Yeah.
But I think that's cool too, because it does. It speaks to the fact that you're trying to honor that heritage and legacy while also journaling the ones that you've created for yourself.
Yep. It's the only thing we can take with us is memory.
And then hopefully if you've lived a life where you were good to people and treated people the way that they deserved, then they go on to tell the memories and the stories that you left and told them, and they tell them in a positive light.
100%.
Yeah. And to segue into my final question, because you're someone who had a military career in the, among the highest units someone could, you're a Navy SEAL. That is top tier military performance. But it's cool because your life of adventure and your purpose didn't end there. You continued and you've kept on and finding purpose and doing things. And I'm wondering what advice you could give to veterans that are maybe struggling to find purpose after the military and find a way that they can mold into civilian life and still leave their mark and find that purpose and find a reason every day to keep pursuing greater.
Yeah. What I would say to any guy in that position that's either just left the military or is thinking about getting out now, regardless, without regard to how long they've spent in, the people you were with will always give a shit about you, and be thankful that we have the ability to communicate in instant fashion now. They will always have a phone and they'll always be willing to talk, likely. You are not the job you did. That is not your identity. That's a job you did. And this is how I treated it too. That's a job I did that I'm outrageously proud of. But it's a job I did. It's not who I am. You are whomever you want to mold yourself into, and that's always going to be part of that identity. Hold on to it, but use it as like leverage for yourself, not leverage on top of that job. Like, I do everything I can do to make sure that I'm honoring the legacy of being a SEAL and not leveraging it for my own benefit in a way that's disgusting. Because, man, there's guys that I was in buds with that are still serving and still shooting their guns and still, like, they're still going into the fire. And they don't deserve guys out in the civilian world being like, yeah, I was a Navy SEAL, and like, just to get looked at. No way. No, there's dudes still doing that damn job. You know, so now back that up to any other job. Like, oh man, maybe you work in mechanics, or maybe you were a tank driver or a helicopter flyer, or, you know, like whatever. It's a job you did. Honor that job and honor that legacy and honor the people that are still doing the job by letting that job go and keeping it in your soul as a part of you, not who you are. And you'll be able to find another community that will give a shit about you. It will always be a different one, but it will never have to be your identity. It shouldn't be your identity. That's what I would tell people.
I love that. And this has been a cool conversation for me because I've only known you, somewhat known you for about a year.
Ish, yeah.
And, I've said to multiple people, like, in a lot of ways, you're someone I very much value, because anyone who's hearing this will kind of understand. But when you meet people from a military background, especially like a special operations kind of background, and they are these adventure and adrenaline junkies, you tend to typecast them into a certain light and a certain opinion and viewpoints. And one thing I've learned about you is you aren't. Like, we've had a lot of really deep conversations, and I've found that you're shockingly compassionate for people who other people would probably never expect you to really care about. And in fact, they would maybe even expect you to dislike them because of your military background. Mm-hmm. And I've found you to be extremely compassionate about those type of people. And that's something that I've learned to really respect about you and like, and I've enjoyed kind of sharing those thoughts with you. And it's cool too. And when your grandfather passed away, and it was one of the things that I wanted to reach out to you, because I'll get emotional now saying this, but I was very much like a papaw's boy. Mm-hmm. My papa was my hero. And that is still kind of the litmus that I put my own life to is, I don't really care about other people's opinions that much, but it's like, would my papa have been proud?
Yeah. If I care or don't care.
Yeah. So, he was a man's man, World War II veteran, just an amazing human being. So I have to ask myself, is that something he would have been proud about, or is that something he would be ashamed of? Mm-hmm. And to me, that's always been a very strong litmus to put my life to. And so I do think it's cool because, as you said, a lot of your inspiration for becoming a SEAL and joining the military, and it came from that lineage
of
your family that's gone on. And so I do feel comfortable saying that, you know, for the rest of your life, you'll be able to use that same litmus of your papaw, and it'll have that powerful impact, because I'm very sure he was extremely proud of you, and will continue to look and be proud of the things you do. So it's been cool just to kind of get to know you more. There's been a lot of questions I've wanted to ask you for a year that I didn't, because I knew I was going to ask them when this day came. So, man, I appreciate it. I learned a lot about you. Hopefully a lot of other people did. And I encourage everyone to follow you on Instagram, because you post some pretty crazy things. Your adventures are fun. And what is your Instagram handle for everyone?
Just my name, Trevor.P.Thompson. Yeah.
And it's a fun, because you very much, you share the things you're doing, and a lot of people, including myself, can live vicariously through that who aren't as much of adrenaline junkies. So I appreciate it, and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I want to thank you guys for watching, and also a word of thanks to our sponsors who have made this episode possible. All I ask is that you guys please hit the like and subscribe button, as it helps the podcast grow, and so we can continue to bring on some great guests for you guys. I'll see you in the next one.